Hello and welcome back to another episode of Escaping Kerbin. So today for our 11th episode, we decided to pay a little tribute to the Apollo 11 lander that brought humans to the moon. Humans to the moon for the first time. And so we are going to be heading to the moon, but instead of the typical lander that we always do, the one that you saw in the Mid-Miss episode, we are going to try to design a craft that can recreate some of the legs of the Apollo mission, as far as like how the lander was put together, how the return capsule was situated, and so that's that. So first we're gonna, as always, go in here and grab any kind of relevant contracts that we have, anything regarding the MUN. One contract in specific that we get requires us to do a bunch of different science experiments from the poles of the MUN. So that's kind of where we're going to be heading ourselves. We also come here and pick up some tourist contracts, but that's just to make ourselves some money a little bit later. So we check out mission control to see if we have, or public relations to see if we have any kind of thing that we can do, but we can't, so we just leave it as is. And then we go here and look through some of the science nodes to see if there's anything that can help us along our way. So I grabbed that mainly for the communication dish, but I don't think I end up using it, so I didn't need to grab it just yet. I do grab this for the larger life support, though. That was a good grab. And this is going to be the first, series, first multi-part episode that we have using both parallax and volumetric clouds. So it should be quite interesting to look at, I think. But anyways, here we are. We're going to start with the lander can. And then I put on this docking port junior, and I wasn't happy with it. I'm like, oh, well, we need to get the docking port senior. Let's just go back to the R&D lab and try to unlock that. But the problem is it's 160 science, and we spent all our science just moments ago, so I was kicking myself a little bit for that, but there's not much we can really do about it. The small docking port's fine, as long as both crafts have the same size docking port. That's all that matters. So we go ahead and utilize this lander can. I don't like the IVA version of it as much, but in third person it works out just fine. So we go and we're starting to put experiments. I keep bringing the Science Junior out, trying to smash it in as well as I can. I do eventually get in there, but it's just kind of funny to see me like pull it out, like, oh, can I get it this time? No, I can't. Put it right on back. So yeah, so one of the things we need is a telemetry report, so we're going to definitely have to have a probe core control. We also need a bunch of life support, because who knows how long we'll be on the surface. Here we go again, trying to get the Science Junior in. Eventually, I have to do some clipping. It's a fair warning to anybody watching this. There's going to be some part clipping. If you can't handle that, then maybe revert your eyes a little bit. But we have to do what we can to get this done. And keep everything in a relatively low profile, because these parts that come with the game, at least unless you get the Making History DLC, a lot of these parts are only symbols of the original parts. They're not exactly the same thing. So we go ahead and place our lower stage. This is going to be the stage that brings us back down, that brings us to the MUN. And then we are going to, just like in the original Apollo missions, we are going to jettison our lower stage for a smaller, more efficient engine up top, even though it's the same engine, but it has less weight to push. So I went ahead and just did a test run just to make sure that the two would separate the way that I wanted them to. And it looks good. I'm excited. So we go ahead and put on some lights there. This is a tracking light. I think is very useful. I stick out at kind of an angle. I'm kind of worried about that aerodynamically, but there's nothing else we can really do. Go ahead and I put a reaction wheel in there as well, and now I'm working on getting RCS ports. But the thing is we only unlocked, we didn't unlock good RCS ports. We only have this single directional thrust, directional, whatever you want to call it. So they're not very good. Thankfully, we don't need to do too much RCS maneuvering on this mission, so it works out. So now we're going to be working on the return capsule. This is going to be a 3-seater, of course. We are going to be just like in the Apollo 11. We're going to be taking up 3 Kerbals. One of them is going to be staying in this capsule and just orbiting the Mun, excuse me. Now I'm getting all mixed up with those. But yeah, one will be orbiting the Mun while the other 2 drop down to the surface, do their science, and then come up and rendezvous. So we're just keeping it very simple. It's just crew capsule, reaction wheel, or not even reaction wheel, crew capsule, life support, battery, solar power, and heat shield. That's basically all we need for this. But then I do put a reaction wheel in, because why not? Reaction wheels are great. And now I'm having a little bit of trouble putting the decoupler on the lower stage on the lander. For some reason it doesn't want to attach. So I just take an engine plate and use that instead. There we go. And now it's time to work on we put a fairing in there, but we're not gonna build the fairing until we're ready to go. And now I put on another Poodle engine in the middle. That's not part of the Apollo build. Like, this rocket's not going to look like the Apollo build. I'm not trying to recreate the actual rocket itself, but just more the spirit of the mission. So, pretty standard launch vehicle that we have. Only this time we throw on some separatrons, so that way when they disable, or when they stage their separations, they will move away from the craft, which is always nice. Now we go ahead and make our fairing. We do a little bit of auto strutting right now. Nothing big though. Just enough to say that we did it. And throwing on some. I realized I didn't actually put any RCS canisters on there. I put the thrusters, but not the canisters. So I went in last minute and just kind of threw some of those on. I'm working through the fairing, trying to get some of these things done, make sure my staging is correct. So then I go and I test it out, but it ends up being way too wobbly. So I come in here and I say, well, all that reinforcement that I didn't do anything. So I'm just going to come in here and just do everything, auto strut, just absolutely everything. Anything that's in a vertical line is going to get strutted. I throw some real struts on there, just to kind of keep everything attached, put the fairing right back on. I only strutted the top bit, who's really counting, who's really checking? Well, apparently the Kraken was checking, because once again it was still not strutted well enough. So I come in here, I put on some legitimate struts, some actual struts in there to kind of help with the workload of keeping this rocket straight and flat. And there we go. Alright, so now we should be ready once more. And in the last minute before we launched, I decided to throw on just a little bit of extra fuel on this transfer stage. I wasn't sure if it would be enough, and for the Mun it might have been just barely enough, but I'd like to reuse this this lander for mid-miss in the subsequent missions if possible. But anyways, here we are. We are just a early morning launch. It's going to be lit by the sunrise. It's going to be fairly easy, and I'm going to leave most of this footage unedited since this is the first time we've used this kind of craft. And it's also been a while. This is the first time we've done any kind of major mission since getting Blackrak's volumetric clouds, so it's gonna be nice to kind of see how that interacts. I also mentioned we have Parallax 2.0, so our mun is going to be scattered with rocks and things like that, and we're also playing with collision on, so every single one of those rocks will have a physical weight to it, so to speak. And so if our landing legs tries to touch down on one of those rocks, it will prevent it from making a flat landing, obviously. If our rover decides to hit one of those rocks, it's not just going to go straight through it, it's going to collide. And I think that is the most fun and realistic way of using parallax is with the collisions turned on. There we go, our side boosters flame out, and we go ahead and jettison them. We could have put some parachutes on them to recover some of that stage, but chose to just go for a little bit extra fuel instead. We have quite a bit of money right now. We don't really need to focus on maximizing our profits. So we're just going to cruise up and get ourselves to a fairly high apoapsis, just so we don't have to worry about coming back down into the atmosphere. If we have room to go, then we feel more comfortable. Sure, it's not the most efficient, yes, but we don't need to be as efficient as possible in here. We've got plenty of delta V to manage us. And we reach our apoapsis height, and we're just going to time our way into past the Kerbin line into space. And once we reach our way into space, then we're going to go ahead and plot our maneuver to circularize, just that way, so it doesn't have to recalculate once we cross from the atmosphere into space. We're just going to wait till it was space. So we plug that into our flight computer. Then we physics warp our way up a little bit so the craft can shift over to the maneuver node. And then we time warp our way to the maneuver. And fire. And we get a bunch of wiggling from the engine, and that's because we didn't turn down its gimbal limit. If you have this kind of wobbling in your craft, oftentimes it can be fixed by just turning off or not turning off, but turning down the gimbal limit on it. I noticed this wiggle a lot when using flight computer, so if you notice that as well, that's a pretty easy fix. And then we burn out our lure stage, and then we start kicking off our transfer and our capture and potentially even our landing stage. We get rid of our fairing and then deploy our solar panels, so that way we can just already start getting electric charge. Also, it's better to do it right now, so you don't end up forgetting and running out of electric charge midway through the journey. And this burns for so long that I actually have to check the flight computer to see that it was meant to be burning still, or if it just never turned itself off. But no, it's just a long burn. It's one of the nice things about flight computer is I can just sit back and kind of get these nice angles instead of having to worry about my countdown. And we should be coming up. Yep, the camera went ahead and turned to let us know that we are almost in orbit. And we should be finishing up relatively soon. Yep, the engine is throttling down, going to bare minimum. And BlackRock has since put out an update to the volumetric clouds that makes the Earth look a little wispier from above. I have not checked that out yet, and this episode was recorded before that update came out. So now we're just going to go ahead and plot our capture for the month. Like I said before, we are going to be going for a polar orbit, which is more, I guess, more reminiscent of the Artemis 3, which will be landing on the South Pole. We ended up landing on the North Pole, but still, you know, paying little homages here and there. Excuse me. Look at all that weather below us. Really is beautiful. And when we come around to the dark side here for a second, we even get to see some of the volumetric storms happening. We'll see that here in a second. So it's time warp up to the next maneuver. And it's going to be a long burn. We're using the Poodle engine, so it's more about the efficiency of the engine than the potency. So when we're on the Mun, we don't have too many goals. We only picked up the experiment, or the contract for the experiments to be done on the poles. We don't really plan on biome hopping anywhere, and we don't have any kind of rover to take with us. So all in all, this is going to be just a quick little jaunt to the moon and back, for primarily just to kind of say that we can, to test out this new delivery, launch, and return system, to practice rendezvousing with an orbiting craft, so that way we don't have to use the same craft to arrive at any celestial body, land, and return, we can really maximize our delta V usage by splitting those into stages. So this is more of a proof of concept. This is more to show that we can do it to you, to our agencies, and to ourselves, so that way we can move forward and do greater and better things. I do, however, forget to pick up a Munstone, and that I'm a little saddened about. I watched through this footage after the mission was done and over, and I'm like, what did I forget to do? What did I forget to do? And forgot to grab a stone and bring it home with us. But that's okay. So we're just steadily climbing, pushing our apoapsis out further and further. Around this point, I'm starting to think, I'm like, would it be more efficient to just kill the burn, come around back to the maneuver node after a full orbit and hit it again? But then I start really making some distance with my apoapsis, and then I'm like, no, I can get this all in one shot. I may have to do a deep space correction burn, but... And the flight computer goes ahead and burns for too long, because that's what it does sometimes. So I would have had to make a correction burn regardless. I'm just going to try to come in a nice cool 90 degrees. I play around with it to see if I can get my periapsis a little bit closer to the surface. So I'm just going to be going back and forth, but that's about as close as I can get. So I'm just gonna go with it. Plotted it in flight computer and executed the node. So now we're just going to time warp to the actual maneuver itself. We're just going to be looking at the MUN just to see how our orbit changes. We don't really need to look at the craft. It's just going to, just going to show us that the engines are firing, and we already know that. So there we go. It's not entirely perfect, so I go ahead and just point myself to the side a little bit. I just want to adjust it to be a little more 90 degrees, I guess, straight up and down. I go ahead and I limit my throttle, so that way I can really fine-tune this this maneuver. I need to come up with another name for maneuver. I guess move. This series of actions that it does. So we go ahead and time warp our way away from the planet Kerbin. It's looking beautiful. I might put in a little bit more of a graphic mod a little bit later that might add some stars. I feel that our space is very empty, and I know that space normally is actually fairly dark. It's the types of stars that we see are more from special cameras than just how many stars that are out there around us. But I have a skybox that does the Calm Nebula. That's that blue that you see, but it does feel a little empty. I don't know. We'll see. I'm hesitant about changing my mods too much, considering how far into the series we are. Yeah, I don't want anything to end up breaking. And speaking of breaking, we go ahead and freeze up when we enter the moon sphere of influence. The mun, excuse me. Just a quick side note, I am going to be trying to continue the RP1 RSS-RO, or I said that completely backwards, but the RSS-RO RP1 series, I'm going to be trying to continue that. I was able to get the volumetric clouds for it, but it takes about 3.5 years to load up each game. With the new visuals on it, so I'm not sure. I might have to take those visuals off just to get it to run, but we are going to be continuing that slowly. It does take a lot of time and effort to get things going. It's not like this where I can kind of bang out missions really quickly. There's a lot of learning that I need to do when it comes to RSS, and so I haven't been as dedicated to it as I have for this other series, but I don't think it's dead yet. I think we're still going to try to make it. I actually have half of an episode that I filmed a while ago. I just need to finish the other half, and that's we were going to be working on rocket planes, X-planes, and so the first half of it is really me struggling, just trying to figure out how to build the thing. And then I kind of built the thing. It still needs some work, but the rest of the episode is going to be about flying the thing. But I can't really fly the thing if I can't load the thing. So we're going to work on that. But just a quick side note about the moon as opposed to the mun. So here we are. We're coming up on our capture burn, and we're going to be circularizing around the moon, around the mun. Jeez, I just did that. I just told myself the correct version, and I just did that. Anyways, we're going to capture ourselves on the mun, and in the next episode, we're going to focus on landing and doing the science and the return. But for now, this is kind of where we're going to leave ourselves today. Just get ourselves ready for the next leg of the journey. As you can tell from the thumbnail and the title, this is part 1, and it's part 1 of 2. The Minmus mission is going to be a 3-parter. So what we're going to be doing, as you can tell, is the mission of Minmus is episode 1, and then the next one is the mission of the Mun, episode 1, and then Minmus episode 2, then the Mun episode 2, and then we're going to finish it off with the final episode of the Minmus trip. And yeah, we are doing quite a lot in both of our saves. We've got quite a lot going for us. And if this rocket works, if this Apollo style lander works and is able to make it and come back and do all this stuff, we may actually just import this craft into our KSP POV and try to do the same mission, not at the poles, but do the same mun landing with the Apollo style craft, but do it all in first person IVA mode. I think that would be a lot of fun. And since in our KSP POV we're going to Minmus, it's not like we're just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again, So here we are captured. But anyways, this is where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward to the rest of this mission, and I hope you're looking forward to more from this series. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving me a like, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.